Hello, good morning. Today we're going to be talking about from Book 6, Unit 7, Grammar 1. And some stuff we want to start with. We want to make sure you understand the difference between comparing and contrasting. Comparing is when you're talking about how two things are the same, showing, again, likeness, how they're similar. And so here we have an example of four cartoon characters singing. And so the men are all wearing the same clothes. Again, they have gray pants on, all of them. They have red shirts, a yellow tie, a blue shirt, and a hat. So again, that's how they're the same. They're wearing the same clothes. Contrasting is to show when things are different. So in our little cartoon singers here, all the men are different heights. So again, this guy's kind of tall here. We got two kind of short ones, and then one kind of between the tall and the shorts. All right. So again, comparing is to show how two people, two things, two ideals are similar. So like from this one, we could also say comparing, they all have big noses. So that's another way they are similar. Right? And another contrasting ideals is they each seem to have slightly different mustaches, different color. This one of them has a gray, one of them has an orange, and two of them have kind of brown, but slightly looks like different colors brown. So again, knowing the difference between how we comparing and contrasting. And so this is going to be used with both of our both sides of two things we're talking about today: transitions and subordinators. We need it for both. All right, and then we want to also talk about what's the difference between a dependent and an independent clause. So a dependent clause cannot be, a sentence all by itself. For instance, when it started raining, before I went to school, before I go to sleep at night. So all of those, there should be more information. If you just stop there, there's something missing. So that's kind of a dependent clause. More information is needed. After we went to the store. Again, well, what'd you do after you went to the store? What'd you do before you went to school? There's something missing. But a dependent clause can be a sentence all by itself. So if you answer that, like in my example, after we went to the store, okay, we had dinner at McDonald's. So we had dinner at McDonald's. It can be a standalone sentence. So that's called independent. That can be a complete thought, a complete sentence. We had dinner at McDonald's. But the part after we went to the store, okay, again, when I got up, before I go to sleep, so that's the dependent. There's something more necessary. It can't stand by itself. So for the subordinators, when we're going to get to that, that we need to understand these two concepts. All right. Now let's look a little more at, we're going to comparing and contrasting. All right. So are these sentences comparing or contrasting? So we want to make sure you understand the difference here. So I'm going to go through all of them, and then we'll look at the, what each one should be. So Ali and Abdullah are both tall. So do you think that's comparing or contrasting? Right? Just think about it. Okay. Ali runs 3 times a week, whereas Abdullah doesn't exercise. Again, comparing or contrasting. Okay. Ali is studying engineering. Similarly, Abdullah wants to be an engineer. Okay, again, comparing or contrasting. All right? Ali and Abdullah both live in Saudi Arabia. However, they are from different cities. All right? Again, comparing or contrasting. Okay? Ali has a small family, but Abdullah has a large family. Comparing or contrasting. The but really has is an indicator there. Okay? Now let's look at the answers for these. So notice the word comparing up here is in green, contrasting is in red. So again, the ones marked in green are comparing, the ones marked in red are contrasting. Again, comparing is showing how two things are similar. Yeah, again, how they're the same, close to each other. Contrasting is how they are different. So again, the first one, Ali and Abdullah are both tall. Again, comparing. They're talking about both of them are similar in that they're tall. So that's why it's comparing. Okay. Ali runs 3 times a week, whereas Abdullah doesn't exercise. So contrasting how Ali and Abdullah are different. Again, Ali exercises a lot, is what that kind of says, but Abdullah doesn't exercise. Ali runs 3 times a week. That's good exercise. Abdullah doesn't exercise. So very different there. Okay? Comparing, Ali is studying engineering. Similarly, Abdullah wants to be an engineer. So again, that's comparing. It's basically saying they're both interested in engineering. Ali is studying and Abdullah wants to study engineering. Number 4, Ali and Abdullah both live in Saudi Arabia. However, they are from different cities. So that's contrasting. The first part does kind of point out that, a little bit of mix, but overall, because of this however here, this is a contrasting idea. They're from different cities. So that's what's being stressed. This first part, they're both from the same country, Saudi Arabia. But overall, the sentence is contrasting. Right? Next, Ali has a small family. But again, that's an indicator there. But Abdullah has a large family. Again, contrasting. Usually when you use the word but, you're talking about a contrasting ideal. That again, one has small, the other one has large. So comparing is how things are the same. That's the simplest word. And contrasting is how they are different. Right? Let's go to the next. Right? So today we're going to study transitions and subordinators. Right? The word transitions kind of means, moving from one place to another. You're, again, transitioning from high school to college. So that's a little, but again, so today we're going to talk about using transitions that when you're talking about how comparing things, how things are similar and how they are different. All right. And subordinators, this word comes subordinator, or a subordinate is somebody that has a little less power. So if somebody's the manager and he has like 3 employees working for him, the employees are the subordinates, not exactly this word, but I want you to understand, they have a little less power than the manager. So subordinator is, one is a little less powerful from the other. So there's kind of a connection. But again, we use these for comparing, again, or contrasting. First, we'll look at transitions. All right, so transitions of comparison and contrast. Okay. transitions connect two independent clauses. So it connects two independent clauses, meaning they could be standalone sentences. Again, how are they similar or how are they same? And so here's an example. Fatima loves cheese. She is allergic to it. All right. So she loves it. She is allergic to it. So again, putting these two, Fatima loves cheese. However, she is allergic to it. So again, this is kind of saying a contrast here is she loves it, but however, there's a problem. She's allergic to it. She likes the taste, but it bothers her stomach, you might say. So this is a contrast. She loves cheese, but it causes her problems. Right? It's the next example. America is a large country. Canada is very big. Again, two separate sentences. Now we're going to put the two ideals together as that America is a large country. Likewise, Canada is very big. So, of course, this is comparing. What we're really saying here, and another way that you could say that, both America and Canada are big, are very big. Both America and Canada are large countries, which is very true. So, but this is a way, again, many times another way is this is the way we're pointing out for transitions, using a transition. America is a large country. Likewise, Canada is a very big country. Right? So one thing to point out with transitions, we'll talk about subordinators later, is if you have two sentences, it's a transition. Subordinators is always only one sentence. So the transition, again, here, however, or likewise. Right? So in this case, so if it's two sentences, it's a transition, but if it's one sentence, it could also be a transition. But subordinators are always, so that's something that can help you kind of think about this is, so here's another example we'll look at. Trash is causing a lot of problems in the ocean. However, not many people are dealing with it. So again, this is saying it's causing a lot of problems, but not many people are trying to fix it. They're dealing with it, okay? So in transitions, after you use, again, you write a transition, however is one of them, and you put a comma. Right? So that's with transitions, you always put a comma after transition. Right? If we wanted to make this one sentence, we need to come up with a semicolon. All right, so trash is causing a lot of problems in the ocean, semicolon. However, comma, not many people are dealing with it. So we can make one sentence out of this. If you're talking about transition, you put a semicolon. I notice the difference here is it's lowercase because it's not a new sentence, but you still put the comma. So there's always a comma after transition. Okay? So here's the transitions we're looking at today. Well, for comparison, when we're talking about transitions, we have similarly, in the same way, and likewise. Okay? Similarly, in the same way, likewise. Okay? And we have, and on the contrasting part, we use the word contrast. In contrast, and again, all these would have comma. In contrast, comma, something. On the other hand, comma, and however. So some of the ways that, again, that maybe help you remember, notice the word hand here. On the other hand, however. So these H words really basically let you know it's contrasting. All right, or this is what, on the other hand, however, all right, are the exact word contrast. All right, and similarly, likewise, and in the same way. So notice that all these same, similar, likewise, comma, comma, they're comparisons. All right. Now, we're in your notebooks, combine these sentences. Notice it says into one sentence using a transition given. Be careful with punctuation. So, let me, I want to back up to here. So remember, we're talking about they're saying in one sentence. So we got a semicolon, and we're going to use a transition, comma, and then the other part. All right. So again, with transitions, we're putting together two independent clauses, so they could be standalone sentence. So what they asked us for, well, we're going to use semicolons and commas for all of them. Let me go back to where we were. So in your notebooks, try to do these. All right. This apple is red. That one is green. In contrast, so we're talking about how are they different. We're putting these together as one sentence. Right? So try to do that. Remember, semicolon, in contrast, comma. So we're going to do that, very, very structured for each one. So one apple is red, one apple is green. Again, how are they different? Right? Plastic, so number 2 here, let's look at plastic is useful for humans. It is harmful for the planet. All right? And again, so they're saying it being plastic. They didn't, but plastic is useful for humans. It's in so many things, no question about that. Got a lot of plastic with even my mouse that I'm using right now, and in my computer. Plastic in my pen that I wrote with just a few minutes ago. All right, so it is harmful for the planet. So this is again a contrasting ideal here. And we have on the other hand. Remember the H words, however, are on the other hand. Seeing that's a contrast. All right, so it'd be plastic is useful for humans, semicolon, on the other hand, comma. Right. Number 3, Saudi Arabia is famous for being hot. Right. Thailand is one of the hottest countries in the world, and we're likewise. So likewise, we're doing how are they the same? Right. So again, Saudi Arabia is famous for being hot. You put something, and then you go with the transition. And number 4, again, you're trying to do this on your own in your notebook. All right? My teacher thinks the planet is dying. Right? I do not think we will survive unless we change something. Right? And the transition we're using in the same way. So again, notice the word same in there. This is a comparison. Transition for comparison. So the teacher and the person that's talking or writing this, they have similar ideals. So again, we're putting this in one sentence. Try that. And the number 5 here, Saudis are very generous, means very nice, kind. Saudis are very generous. Georgians are famous for their hospitality. Georgians are famous for their hospitality. So hospitality is when somebody comes to your house, your home, your apartment, and you basically, offer them food. You're very nice to them. So again, we have the word similarity. So how this is talking about how they're the same. We're putting it in one sentence. Okay. So let's look at all of these. All right. So this is the way you put these in one sentence. Number 1. This apple is red, semicolon. All of these are going to have this. If you're putting it in one sentence for transition, you have to have the semicolon. And this apple is red, semicolon, in contrast, that one is green. So again, you got the comma, so in contrast. How are they different? This apple is red, in contrast, that one is green. One apple is green, one apple is red. We're showing it how they are different. All right? And so, number 2, plastic is useful for humans. Semicolon, you're always going to have that. On the other hand, comma, it is harmful for the planet. So again, the idea of plastic is useful, but a lot of plastic bottles pollute the planet. So that's where it's kind of how talking about it's good but bad. So that's kind of the contrasting idea. How it's different in one way it's good, one way it's bad. So you're kind of comparing plastic to itself. Right? Number 3, Saudi Arabia is famous for being hot. Semicolon, likewise, comma, Thailand is one of the hottest countries in the world. So again, how to combine that into one sentence. Both countries, Saudi Arabia and Thailand, are hot. Number 4, my teacher thinks the planet is dying. Semicolon, in the same way, comma, I do not think we will survive unless we change. So we're pointing out how similar, the same, my teacher thinks and the way I think. That's what we're talking about here. Okay? Number 5, Saudis are very generous. Semicolon. Similarly, comma, Georgians are famous for their hospitality. All right. So we're kind of saying that both when you're generous and you're famous for hospitality, both of those are similar ideals, that you're treating other people nice. Generous, you might give them money, you might help them. Hospitality is directly saying you're very nice when people come to your house, when people visit your home. So that's, so 2, again, talking about Saudis and Georgians are both kind people, is what this one is generally saying. All right, let's go on. Next slide. All right. So now we're going to look at subordinators and again, comparison and contrast. Now, again, one of the things, transitions, this is kind of something to remember. Transitions can be, you can keep them at 2 sentences and just put the transition you're using in front of it and at the front of the second sentence. It always goes in front of the second sentence and comma. Or it can be one sentence and use a semicolon, then the transition, then a comma. Subordinates are always one sentence, never two. So again, we're comparison and contrast. Again, how are things same? Now, again, subordinators, the key thing is one, the independent sentence is a little more important. That's where kind of the subordinator comes in. One is a little more important than the other. In some cases, it gives details. So now so subordinators connect, and as I said, an independent, the more important, and a dependent clause into one sentence. The independent clause is the more important ideal. So here's an example. The wind stopped. Okay. And kind of the wind stopped, it might answer a question. Somebody might say, what happened with the wind? And somebody might say, the wind stopped. But if you just say the wind stopped, that's not quite. There's something a little bit you don't have. But the rain started falling. That definitely qualifies as a complete sentence. So that's the independent clause. So comparison, the rain stopped falling. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The rain started falling as the wind stopped. Right? So again, the more important ideal, the rain started falling is more important. The wind stopped is more of a detail. So, but we're kind of like comparing them in time. One started, the other one stopped. Right? And so the rain is a little more important than the wind here in this sentence. Right? High school was not difficult. Right? High school was not difficult. University is more challenging. So in this case, again, university is more challenging. So we're kind of, again, knowing the difference between the two. So while high school was not difficult, university is more challenging. So the independent clause here, university is more challenging, is a little more important than the high school was not difficult. Maybe it's because if somebody's saying this right now, their current life has the university in it. It's what's going on. And so move on to the next one. Sorry, the lights went out in the room I'm at, and so I wanted to have them on. So I turned them on real quick. Right. The subordinator goes with the dependent clause. So this is something to kind of pay attention to. The subordinator word, like while, right, it can be first or second. It can, again, you can put it in the beginning of the sentence or the end, but it goes with the dependent clause. So all of my sisters are doctors. So they're saying that could be a standalone sentence. All of my sisters are doctors. All right? I am a teacher. All right? So this one, I am a teacher, could be a standalone sentence. What do you do? I'm a teacher. But in this case, it's being connected here that this is all of my sisters are doctors while I am a teacher. So this is the more important. Kind of saying that all of them are doctors, I'm a little different. So, and this is again contrasting. All of them are doctors, I'm a teacher. Right? If we put the dependent clause first, while I'm a teacher, then we need to have a comma here. Notice no comma in the first one. While I am a teacher, comma, if we start with the dependent clause, All of my sisters are doctors. So again, this is a little more important here. So use a comma. Again, if the subordinator, this is the word, subordinator, is at the start of a sentence. Right, next. So here's a list of the subordinators we're working with right now. Notice on the contrasting side, we got the two W's, right? So we whereas or while. Whereas, while. So again, kind of showing that you could almost replace them with a but you know, you don't. They have similar meaning, you know, in this case. With the comparison, again, just as or as, we used that one earlier. In the same way that. So I was kind of looking at this, the way I might remember all that is just that W, jaw, J-A-W, jaw. And then in the same way that, I noticed the transitions doesn't have any of that, so that jaw is how I might remember this. J-A-W. Then if you're in a W, you're doing contrasting. But if you got J-A, or again, that jaw, you're in subordinates. If you're, again, a way to kind of remember this table. Let's look at some examples. Right? In your notebook, combine these clauses into one sentence using the subordinator. Subordinators given. So we are, subordinators are always one sentence. We got to use this one. So I recycle, my mom does. So kind of notice this one, my mom does. If that's all you say, my mom does, you know, what does she do? There's information missing. So this is the one that is considered the dependent clause. So even though this is just two words, this has information that kind of goes along with this one. So, so again, when you try to put these, this is the dependent. So I recycle in the same way that my mom does. Are you good if you put this first, in the same way that my mom does, comma, I recycle. So now we know, again, if you just add my mom does, you don't know that recycle is being used if that's all you saw. So that's kind of what makes it dependent. There's information missing. It's not always information missing, but let's look at number 2. His brother prefers tea. His brother prefers tea. Muhammad drinks a lot of coffee. So they're kind of comparing Muhammad and his brother. All right. So his brother prefers tea. So this is kind of, again, his brother, if that's all you say, his brother prefers tea, if that's all you see, some of the question is, whose brother? Some information is missing here. So this is really the standalone sentence, the independent clause. Muhammad, somebody named Muhammad drinks a lot of coffee. So that, we're not really missing things there, but this one, when we say brother, who are we talking about? So if you put it in this order, you'd say, while his brother prefers coffee, comma, Muhammad drinks a lot of coffee. Or you could say, Muhammad drinks a lot of coffee while his brother prefers tea. Right? So now I'm going to look at 3, and I'm not going to try to do these on your own, and we'll look at them in a second on the next page. Or my parents do. Again, if that's all you see, my parents do what? My parents do. My friends do. Again, if that's all you see, so this is dependent. There needs to be a little bit more information here. Okay? But this part can't be standalone. Again, an independent clause. I have a small house. Right? Just as is what you're trying to. So again, this one is comparing small house. So try to put those together properly. One sentence. Right? Number 4. I am a vegetarian. I am a vegetarian. I think that's standalone because it's who's talking, and they're a vegetarian, meaning they don't eat meat. They eat vegetables. Like some people do that for health reasons, but they only eat vegetables, okay? This one, this shouldn't be it shouldn't be my here. Slight mistake here. The rest of my family are not. The rest of my family are not. Again, if that's all you hear, the rest of my family are not. Not what? Could be many things. The rest of my family are not here. The rest of my family are not in Saudi. The rest of my family are not going to dinner. So this, even though it's longer, there's a little bit of information. So this is the dependent clause. This is the standalone, independent. So try to put those together, whereas. Again, how are they different is how they're being put together. I took medicine. Okay. I took medicine. I felt sick. So this one, I think I took medicine. I would kind of consider that more of the independent clause, but I felt sick. Again, this is as a comparison, is kind of how they're related to each other. Let's look at the answers now. Okay. So here we are. I recycle in the same way that my mom does. Again, this is the independent clause. My mom does. Again, if you don't have the first part, there's something missing here. So the subordinator goes with this one. Okay? So you don't need a comma because you didn't start with the subordinator. Here is the other one. Again, the dependent clause. Muhammad drinks a lot of coffee. While his brother, so this one, if we said it that way, Muhammad drinks a lot of coffee. While his brother prefers tea, no comma is necessary. But starting with the subordinator, while his brother prefers tea, comma, Muhammad drinks a lot of coffee. Number 3. Just as my parents do, again, my parents do, well, what do they do? If that's all you see. So just as my parents do, I have a small house. So this is the standalone. Okay. And so number 4, I am a vegetarian, whereas, and again, this my is incorrect here, whereas the rest of my family are not. So I am a vegetarian is the independent clause, and the whereas goes with the rest of my family are not. Again, if this is all you have, what are they not? There's a little bit missing. So they're, again, because we got the vegetarian part here, that kind of shows what, that is, they're not vegetarians. Number 5, I took medicine as I felt sick. So again, they're saying this is the dependent clause. Independent clause, I said that wrong, that I took medicine as I felt. So this is why, kind of comparing, more related, that giving a little kind of, again, more of comparison there, that why did they? It's more related. So again, subordinators are always one sentence. If you start with the actual subordinator at the beginning, you need a comma. And the subordinator, the words we're talking about, they go with the they go with the dependent clause. So that's what we will try to remember. Okay, so now we're going to do some review. Here's the first question. What is the difference between compare and contrast? Right? So again, try to think about that. What is the difference? Right? What is a transition? How many sentences do transitions make? How many can you get? Kind of think about it. We talked about it. What are the rules for punctuation of transitions? What is a subordinator? Okay, again, try to think about that. We'll answer them in just a moment. How many sentences do subordinators make? Again, some of these multiple answers, only one answer. What are the rules for punctuating with subordinators? And the last one here, number 8. Is the dependent or independent clause more important? Let's look. What is the difference between compare and contrast? Compare shows similarities, how things are the same. Contrasting shows how they're different. What is a transition? Transitions connect two independent clauses. Independent is kind of the key. How many sentences do transitions make? If you use a transition, you can get 1 or 2 sentences out of it. So if you're looking at an example that has 2, you know it's a transition as opposed to a subordinator. What are the rules for punctuation with transitions? You always use a comma after transition. Again, however, likewise, you always have a comma after it. If you're only making 1 sentence, you have to have a semicolon. So if you have 1 sentence and it has a semicolon, it's a transition. If you have 1 sentence and there's no semicolon, it's a subordinator. What is a subordinator? Connects an independent and a dependent clause. Many times information is missing from the dependent clause that's in the independent clause. And that's what makes, again, 1 is more important, has more of the direct information. How many sentences do subordinators make? Always 1. What are the rules for punctuation with the subordinator? If you start with the subordinator, the word like while or just as, you will need a comma. If you don't start with it, no comma is necessary. Is the dependent or independent clause more important? Independent is more important. Okay. Next, let's go on. Some practice questions. All right. So, my friend speaks Spanish, period. Blank, I speak French, period. Transition, 2 sentences, so it's transition. Okay. And which of these would be better? Whereas or in contrast? Okay? So in this one, in contrast, because whereas is subordinators. Remember, I kind of told you to remember that table, that jaw, J-A-W. So we have a W word, that's a subordinator. So contrast, in contrast. Right? Zainab is ambitious. Okay? We got one sentence here. Do we have a semicolon? No. So this is subordinator. All right. Zainab is ambitious, blank, her father was when he was younger. Okay. In the same way, again, that's transition, so we're here. Zainab is ambitious as her father was when he was younger. Okay. Let's look at number 3. Sarah has a new phone. Okay. Fezels is 5 years old. So in this case, Fezels is 5 years old. If you only have that, what's 5 years old? Fezels is only 5 years old. If you don't have this first part, so this is dependent, this is independent. So again, it's a subordinator, and so both of these are subordinators, but one is new, one is 5 years old, so we really want the while here. Sarah has a new phone while Fezels is 5 years old. Pizza is unhealthy. Look at number 4. Pizza is unhealthy. Burgers are normally bad for you. So unhealthy, bad for you. And we have 2 sentences, so this is a transition. So similarly, and we have however, but again, bad for you. So these 2 are more comparing, so we need to choose similarly. Pizza isn't healthy. Similarly, burgers are bad for you. Okay. Now, I'm going to do the last 4, quicker, and so you try to do it on your own. I won't give which answer. Khalid has never left his hometown. Period. Blank. Mustafa travels a lot. So we got 2 sentences. It's transition. That might help you. And basically, one's never left their hometown. The other one travels a lot. Again, comparison. Or how are they different? All right. This one, Karthal gets good grades in school. Blank, that Aisha does. And so here, Aisha does. If that's all we had, Aisha does. Something's kind of missing. Aisha does. Well, what does Aisha do? So again, this is a subordinator, and this is the dependent clause. Figure out which one goes there. Mangoes are my favorite fruit because they are sweet. Semicolon. So this is a transition. We're looking for a transition. That may help you eliminate one of the answers. Lemons are too sour. Okay. Number 8, blank, Hussein is always busy. Ibrahim works very hard. So we got one sentence. We don't have a semicolon, so we're looking for a subordinator. And that may help you. Now let's look at the answers. Okay. My friends speak Spanish. In contrast, I speak French. So again, 2 sentences, transition, in contrast. Spanish, French. Clearly talking about differences here. Okay. Number 2, Zainab is ambitious. Okay. Her father was when he was young. So if we just look, notice Zainab is ambitious. It's only 3 sentences, but it's a whole thought. If we only saw her father was when he was young, what was her father when he was young? Could be many things. So this is subordinator. Again, independent, dependent clause. So as would be used here. Right? Bezos is 5 years old. We're again, subordinator again. What was 5 years old? If that's all we see. Sarah has a new phone while Bezos is 5 years old. Together, it all makes sense. We're contrasting one's new, one's old. Number 4, I believe, is the next one. Pizza is unhealthy, period. Blank. Burgers are normally bad for you. Unhealthy, bad for you. Close together ideals. So transition, pizza is unhealthy. Similarly, burgers are normally bad for you. Number 5, Khalid has never left his hometown, period. Blank, Mustafa travels a lot. So 2 sentences, we're looking for transition, and so that would have to be while is for subordinators, so in contrast. Khalid has never left his hometown. Little mistake there. In contrast, Mustafa travels a lot. Next, thing number 6, Carl gets good grades in school. Blank, that Aisha does. Again, if we saw that Aisha does, if that's all we saw, what are they talking about? A lot missing there. That Aisha does. If that's all you hear. That Aisha does. What are they talking about? That's not a standalone sentence. So we need to, so this is a transitional word, so it has to be the other one. Carl gets good grades in school in the same way that Aisha does. Next one, number 7, I believe. Mangoes are my favorite fruit because they are sweet. Again, semicolon. So we got one sentence here. It's a transition. So this the only one transition. Mangoes are my favorite fruit because they're sweet, semicolon. On the other hand, comma, lemons are too sour. Let's look at number 8, the last one for our practice. Hussein is always busy. Ibrahim works very hard. So this is one sentence. We don't have a semicolon. So it's subordinate. All right. And likewise is, so we have just as. So here they're saying Ibrahim works very hard is the independent clause. Hussein is always busy. I guess in a game that works very hard, Hussein is always busy. So not that different in importance, but just as Hussein is always busy, Ibrahim works very hard. I think we got a little bit more left here. All right, let's look at these correcting mistakes. Cats are cute, comma, just as dogs are. So something's wrong there. Zahar doesn't usually like chicken. However, kapsa is her favorite food. So something is wrong there. Try to pick it out. Likewise, it is hard to learn to play the violin. Playing the piano is not easy. So again, 2 sentences. What is wrong here? Right? Just as it is expensive, comma, someone should help clean up the ocean. So what is wrong with that one? That one sounded wrong to me too, very clearly. Right? Abdulaziz is very active and does a lot of sports. Semicolon, so it should be a transition. In contrast, Majid always plays video games. What's missing there? Let's look at them one at a time. Here we go. Cats are cute, just as dogs are. Again, this is a subordinate. We didn't start with it, so we shouldn't have the comma. Just remove the comma. Remember, dogs are, if that's all you see, that's the dependent clause. Dogs are what? But the first part gives a little, we're talking about cute. Dogs are also cute, is kind of what it's saying. Right? Let's look at number 2. We didn't have any of the, again, Zara doesn't usually like chicken. Kapsa is her favorite food. Both are standalone. They put it into one sentence, so we need a semicolon and a comma after however. Right? Let's look at number 3. Okay. It is hard to play the violin. Likewise, playing the piano is not easy. So the problem, they started with likewise. With transitions, the transition, you don't start with it. Now with subordinates, you can start with a subordinator, but with transitions, you don't put it. You put it with the second. Transitions go with the second sentence. All right? So I guess I'm wondering, play the piano is not easy. Likewise, it is hard to learn to play the violin. So you could switch the sentences, but the likewise should go here. Let's look at the next one. So just as it is expensive, someone should clean up the oceans. Just as, it's basically, these two are contrasting ideals. So just as is a comparing. So we need a different one. So while it is expensive, and now we're saying even though it's expensive, someone should help clean up the ocean. Right? So contrasting, not a comparison. Next one. Abdulaziz is very active and does a lot of sports. And so they put a comma after sports, but Majid always plays video games. 2 standalone. But if we're putting them in one sentence, we need a semicolon and the comma goes after the end contrast. So got a few more here. Is choose the best word that makes a sentence. All right. So Miriam is tall. Her family is short. Wow. And Jeddah is a big city. Lots of people live in Jeddah in the same way. So this is what we're trying to put it together. Dalaman's mom is an excellent cook. She never taught Dalam. Right? And we have however. So again, we got contrasting ideals. This one, number 2, in the same way. Comparison, while contrasting ideals, again, very tall, short. Number 4, it snows every year in Canada. Winter is very cold in Russia, again, similar. All right? And so, and more people should recycle. Food should have less plastic on it. In the same way, so comparison. Let's look at them now. Okay. While her family is short, comma, Miriam is very tall. So again, Miriam is very tall. So they're saying that that's the more important, standalone. Her family is short. So if we start while her family is short, we need a comma here. Right? If we started with Miriam is tall, while her family is short, no comma is necessary. Look at the next one. Here we have, again, Jeddah is a big city. Lots of people live in Dammam. So Jeddah is a big city in the same way, comma, lots of people live in Dammam. So two standalone. And Jeddah is a big city, semicolon, in the same way, comma, lots of people live in Dammam. Let's look at the next one. Dalam's mom is an excellent cook. She never taught Dalam. So these are kind of two independent clauses. Transition, we have she was an excellent cook, but she never taught Dalam how to cook. So however, she never taught Dalam. If we make it one sentence, we have a semicolon and then however, comma. Next. It snows every year in Canada. Winter in Russia is very cold. Two standalone sentences. We're talking about how they're comparing. So it snows every year in Canada. Similarly, winter is very cold in Russia. So comma, or we can put the semicolon with that. Next. More people should recycle. Food should have less plastic on it in the same way. So in the same way as a subordinator. And so they're saying more people should recycle. That's the independent ideal. Food should have less plastic on it. So they're kind of saying the recycle is more important ideal in the same way that food should have less plastic on it. If we start with the subordinator in the same way that food should have less plastic on it, we'd have to have a comma. More people should recycle. And all right, that takes us to the end. We're done here. I hope you learned something. I hope I didn't bore you too much. So have a good day. We're done here.